One second she was holding his hand. The next, she was holding nothing at all. In the middle of a crowded summer fair, surrounded by thousands of voices and flashing lights, her 5-year-old son disappeared without a sound. No scream, no struggle, no goodbye, just gone. It would take less than 3 seconds, and it would destroy everything. The lemonade napkin she reached for would haunt her forever. And for the next 20 years, Lena Whitmore would search every corner of the country for a boy with one blue eye, one golden brown, and the smallest red baseball cap that never made it home. She kept looking long after the world moved on, and then, on a winter day in a city she did not belong to, she passed a church bulletin board, and her legs gave out. A flyer stared back at her, a youth mentor smiling. Unfamiliar, but those eyes stopped time. What would you do if the child you lost looked back at you 20 years later and did not know who you were? And what if the person who took him had been watching you long before he vanished? If you want to uncover the answers, like this video and subscribe to Unscripted Tales and help this story reach 5,000 likes. It is a promise made for my mother, and with your help, we can fulfill it together. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. It was July 2005 in Boise, Idaho, the kind of warm Saturday when the air smelled like popcorn and sunscreen, and everything felt light and untouchable. The county fair had rolled into town with its usual chaos of music, cotton candy, and rigged games. For Lena Whitmore, that day was meant to be about laughter, carousel rides, and sticky fingers. Her son Noah had just turned 5 a few days earlier. He had not stopped talking about the bumper cars since breakfast. Her husband, Ryan, had teased him, calling him Commander Crash. Lena smiled and packed his favorite juice box into her purse. Just in case he got overwhelmed, Noah wore his Spider-Man sneakers and his red cap with the curved brim. That cap was the one detail Lena would remember more clearly than anything else. He held her hand all morning, wiggling, pulling, bouncing with excitement. The first ride they tried was the carousel. Noah chose the zebra, not the horse, because zebras are cooler. Ryan took a photo with a cheap disposable camera. The sun hit just right. Noah's 2 different colored eyes caught the light. That photo would become the last piece of him they had left. Later, they passed the lemonade stand. Ryan bent down to tie his shoe. Lena turned to grab a napkin. Noah's fingers slipped from hers. That was it. That was all it took. When she turned back, he was no longer there. At first, she thought maybe he ran toward the games, or saw something that caught his eye. She called his name once, then twice. Ryan stood up, confused. They checked behind the stand, rushed back to the carousel. Nothing. Lena's voice began to crack. She shouted his name again and again. One blue, one honey, one blue, one honey. No one had seen a boy with eyes like that. No one remembered a red cap or Spider-Man shoes. The police arrived. An Amber Alert went out. The fairgrounds were searched, mapped, questioned. Cameras were reviewed, but there was no sign of struggle. No witnesses, no noise. It was as if the world had swallowed Noah whole. And when night came, and the fair lights still blinked on rhythmically, the Whitmore family's life blinked off. That was the last time Lena felt sunlight the same way again. Lena Whitmore did not go home that night. Not really. Her body did. But her mind stayed behind. Circling the carousel, the lemonade stand, the space where her son had once stood. The police gave her hope at first. They told her sometimes kids wander, that it was likely he would turn up hiding in a game booth or sitting near the lost and found. But as the minutes passed, and then the hours, the hope in their voices started to fade, and Lena felt something colder than fear settle into her chest. It was something permanent. By the next morning, the fair reopened like nothing had happened. The rides moved, music played. Children laughed, but for Lena, the world had stopped. She clutched the missing poster. They made one blue eye, one honey brown, last seen in a red cap. She repeated those words so often they became part of her breath. Her husband Ryan tried to stay strong. At first, they leaned on each other, sat side by side through interviews, answered questions, cried quietly in the middle of the night. But grief has a strange way of turning people into strangers. By the end of the first year, Ryan stopped saying Noah's name, and by year 3, he stopped coming home. Lena stayed. She could not leave the house, not because she was stuck, but because she believed deep in her bones that Noah might come back, and she needed to be there if he did. His room stayed exactly the same. The pale blue walls, the glow-in-the-dark stars, the twin bed with the dinosaur blanket pulled tight. On the nightstand sat his lava lamp, no longer working. And beside the pillow, Nino, his stuffed elephant, missing one button. She would sit on that bed some nights and whisper, "You are big now." Somewhere, "You are big." She stopped baking. She stopped going to church. The world became too loud, too full of people who meant well, but said the wrong things. Friends visited less. Neighbors avoided eye contact. No one knew what to say to the woman who still hung birthday balloons on the mailbox every July. The woman who still left the porch light on, always, just in case. But Lena did not sit still. She started keeping a journal. Every single day she wrote a note to Noah. Some were long, some short. Today, I saw your favorite cereal at the store. Today, I made spaghetti. Today, I did not cry. I almost smiled. I am sorry. These words filled dozens of notebooks over the years. Some pages were tear-stained, some were angry. All of them ended the same way. Love. Mom. Her hallway became something else too. Once lined with family photo strips to the lake, Christmas mornings, a pumpkin patch outside Pocatello. It now held maps, newspaper clippings, red string, police reports, screenshots of strangers with similar eyes. It looked like something from a detective show, but to Lena it was love. That wall was the only thing that made her feel close to Noah. She read every article, joined every forum, learned about abduction patterns, trafficking routes, age progression. She taught herself how to search databases, how to follow trails no one else believed in. The police stopped checking in, but Lena never stopped looking. Not for one single day. And then, almost 20 years later, a phone call from her sister Carla changed everything. Carla needed help recovering from minor surgery. Nothing serious, just a few weeks of rest. She lived in Spokane, Washington. Lena hesitated. She had not left Boise in years. What if she missed a lead? What if something happened while she was gone? But in the end, she went. Packed light. Just a small suitcase, her journal, and a photo of Noah from that carousel ride. Just in case, it was quiet in Spokane. Snow fell in slow, soft sheets. And for the first time in a long while, Lena breathed without choking on grief. Until one afternoon, while walking back to the car with a bag of groceries, she passed a small wooden church on a corner. It looked old, harmless. A painted sign out front mentioned a youth gathering. She would have kept walking, but something made her glance at the bulletin board. There, tacked near the bottom, was a flyer, handwritten, simple. Come meet Eli, one of our brightest youth mentors. Service open to all. The face in the photo was unfamiliar. A young man, maybe 20, shaggy brown hair, gentle smile. But Lena did not see the hair or the smile. She saw the eyes, one blue, one honey dot. Her grocery bag fell to the ground. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The snow kept falling around her like ash. Her breath left her body so quickly she thought she might faint. She reached forward with a shaking hand and whispered the name she had not spoken aloud in years. Noah. Who was Eli? How did he end up in that church? And why did he have the exact same eyes as a boy who vanished without a trace? Lena could not move. The snow fell gently around her, but she did not feel it. Her eyes were locked on the flyer. Her heart pounded so hard it echoed in her ears. One blue, one honey. The same eyes she had seen every night in her dreams for 20 years. They were staring back at her from a wrinkled piece of paper taped to a church bulletin board. She fumbled for her phone and snapped a picture, then another. Her hands were shaking. Her breathing was short and shallow. It felt like the moment she lost Noah in reverse. The kind of moment that stopped the world. A man stepped out of the church doors, middle-aged, holding a plastic bag. He paused when he saw her. Ma'am, are you all right? Lena pointed at the flyer. That boy, Eli, who is he? The man looked at the photo and smiled. Oh, Eli, he helps out here. Works with the youth. Good kid. Lena's voice cracked as she asked the next question. Is he adopted? The man shrugged. I think so. Pastor Harmon might know more. He brought him in years ago. Said the boy came from somewhere down south. I do not know the details. Years ago. That stuck in Lena's mind. Eli had been here since he was a teenager. She looked at the photo again. Her whole body was trembling. I think he is my son. The man's face changed. He took a small step back, cautious, unsure. I am sorry. I did not mean to scare you, she added quickly. It is just those eyes. My son disappeared 20 years ago, and I swear to you, those are his eyes. The man did not say much after that. He told her again to speak with the pastor, then he walked off into the snow. That night, Lena could barely speak. Carla noticed something was wrong, but Lena just said she had a headache and went to lie down. In truth, her mind was racing. She stared at the flyer photo on her phone, over and over. She zoomed in on the jawline, the smile. It was not proof, but it was something real. The next morning she returned to the church before sunrise. The parking lot was empty. The sky was still gray. She waited on the front steps with her hands curled around, the photo in her pocket like it might disappear if she let go. A tall man in a gray coat arrived just after 7. Pastor Harmon. Lena stood quickly. Pastor, I need to speak with you. It is about someone named Eli. He looked at her with quiet understanding. You are the woman from yesterday, are you not? Yes, come inside, he said. The church was quiet. Still it smelled like old wood and something warm, maybe tea or cinnamon. He led her to a small office behind the sanctuary. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and a shelf of worn Bibles. Lena sat down slowly. Her voice was almost a whisper. I think Eli might be my son. There was a long pause. The pastor did not look surprised. Not exactly. You are not the first to say something like that. Lena's heart dropped. I am not quite like this, he said. But Eli's past is mostly a mystery. He came here at 15. No ID, just a backpack and a few bruises. Would not speak for a long time. When he finally did, he said he could not remember much. Just bits and pieces. A house with blue walls. A woman who smelled like cinnamon. Lena covered her mouth. Her kitchen walls had been blue. Every Friday she used to bake cinnamon bread. The smell filled the whole house. She had always hoped Noah would remember that. The pastor stood and walked to a drawer. He pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a photo torn and faded. Lena felt her breath leave her body. It was the photo from the carousel, her baby on the zebra. One blue eye, one honey brown. The same photo she had kept in her house for 20 years. Where did he get this? The pastor looked down. He said it was in the backpack when he arrived. Said he did not know who the people in the picture were, but that it gave him nightmares. Lena clutched the photo. Her world felt like it was tilting. He is alive, she whispered. My son is alive. The pastor watched her carefully. You have to understand, he does not know who he is. If you come in too fast, you could hurt him. Lena nodded slowly. I understand, but if I am right, I have waited 20 years. I can wait a little longer. The pastor told her Eli would be arriving later that day to help with youth choir. If she wanted, she could stay. But just watch, not speak, not yet. Lena agreed. She sat in the back of the sanctuary for hours. The stained glass caught the morning light and colored the pews in red and gold. She clutched the carousel photo like it was a lifeline. And then, just before sunset, the door opened. A voice echoed down the aisle. Hey pastor, you needed me. Lena turned. There he was, taller now, slim, confident. But the moment she saw his eyes, her heart stopped. He looked at her, confused, curious. Do I know you? Lena could not speak. She could only nod. The boy she lost had grown into a man, and he was standing right in front of her, not knowing who she was. What would happen if the memories came back all at once and he remembered everything he had been forced to forget? Lena wanted to run to him, wrap her arms around him, say his name out loud, but she did not. She stayed seated in the last pew of the church. Her heart was pounding, but her body remained still. She knew she could not scare him. He did not know who she was to him. She was just a stranger watching from the shadows. Eli smiled politely, then turned his attention to the pastor. They exchanged a few words about folding chairs and setting up for youth choir. Lena watched his movements closely. The way he shifted his weight when he stood. The way he chewed the inside of his cheek when thinking. It was the same. It was all the same. He had changed in so many ways, but underneath it all, he was still Noah. For 5 days straight, Lena returned to that church. She sat in the back row during choir practice, helped the staff clean up after youth meetings, and stayed quiet, but her eyes never left him. She studied him like a mother would. She listened when he laughed, noticed how his voice rose, when he got excited, and one afternoon, when a balloon popped from a nearby decoration, Eli jumped so suddenly he dropped an entire stack of chairs. His reaction was sharp, fearful, and too fast to fake. On the 5th day, he approached her. His voice was gentle but firm. You are not just visiting, are you? Lena met his eyes. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. No, she said softly. He sat down beside her, leaving space between them. You keep watching me. I am sorry, she answered. It is all right, he said. People do that sometimes, because of your eyes. Yes, I used to. Hate them, thought they made me look strange, like something was off. But now, I think they make me different in a good way. Lena smiled through the ache in her chest. You should feel that way. He looked at her again. His expression was thoughtful. Do you think we have met before? Lena took a breath. I do not know. Maybe. You feel familiar, he said. But it is hard to explain. Sometimes I think I recognize faces. Or places, but then I realize. Maybe I do not. It is confusing. She nodded, holding back the wave inside her. Do you remember anything from before you came here? He paused, looked. At the stained glass, not much, just flashes. A hallway with blue walls, the smell of bread, a woman humming a song. But then it is gone. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. Did she smell like cinnamon? Eli turned slowly. His eyes widened, just slightly. Yes, that night, Lena sat in her sister's guest room with the carousel photo in her hand. She had seen hundreds of faces over the years, chased dozens of false tips. But this was different. It was not just about the eyes anymore. It was the way he moved. The small reactions, the emotional weight in his voice when he talked about memory. It was him. She knew it deep in her bones. Still, she needed something more. Something real. 2 days later, Pastor Harmon called her into his office. He had spoken with Eli, told him someone was looking for answers. Told him someone believed they knew him from long ago. Eli had agreed to meet. He was nervous. So was Lena. The meeting took place in a quiet basement room under the church. Just a table and 3 chairs. Eli sat across from her, fidgeting with a plastic bottle cap. Lena brought a small box and placed it gently on the table. I want to show you something, she said. He nodded. She opened the box and reached inside Nino, the stuffed elephant, one eye missing, the fabric nearly white from years of wear. She set it in front of him. Eli stared at it, did not speak, did not blink. After a long pause, he whispered, I have seen this where? I do not know. In dreams maybe, or I used to hold the trunk when I slept. Lena gasped. You always did. He reached out and picked it up, slowly, like it might fall apart in his hands. His voice cracked. Why do I remember this? Because you are my son. He did not answer. He just stared at the toy. His eyes filled slowly with tears that slid silently down his cheeks. I do not understand, he said, but I want to. That was all Lena needed. He had not said yes, but he had not said no, and that meant the door was finally open. What forgotten truth was waiting behind that door once the memories began to return? After that meeting in the basement room, everything began to shift. Eli did not run. He did not reject what Lena said, but he also did not fully accept it. He asked for time, and Lena gave it to him. She did not rush him. She had waited 20 years. She could wait longer if it meant getting her son back. Every day after that, she returned to the church. Sometimes she brought small things, a sippy cup with faded dinosaur stickers, a VHS tape labeled Noah's 4th birthday, a yellow blanket covered in tiny cars that Noah used to drag across the floor like a cape. She did not ask him to remember. She just placed the items on the table and let him feel whatever came. Eli started having dreams, not full memories, just pieces, a soft blue hallway, a woman crying behind a door, music, always music, carousel music, and a balloon, a yellow balloon floating upward. Every time he tried to follow it, the dream would end. Then came the real turning point. Eli agreed to a DNA test. It would take weeks to confirm, but Lena already knew. She did not need a lab to tell her. Still, she understood that for him, the science mattered. He needed facts to stand on when everything else in his life felt uncertain. While they waited for the results, Lena started asking questions. She went back to Pastor Harmon. She asked about Eli's arrival at the church. He told her that Eli had come here when he was 15, malnourished, quiet, carrying a torn backpack, and almost nothing else. He would not speak for days. When he finally did, he said he had been raised by a woman he called Mama Ruth, not his real mother, just someone who looked after him. Pastor Harmon never pressed too hard. He gave the boy food, shelter, and space. Do you know where he came from before that? Lena asked. The pastor shook his head. Only what Eli said in pieces. They moved a lot, lived in motels, sometimes in a car. She homeschooled him, kept him hidden. Said the world was dangerous. Lena felt something cold crawl into her chest. What happened to her? She died, the pastor answered. Heart failure. In a gas station parking lot in Utah. That is when Eli was found wandering nearby. No ID, no birth certificate. He was placed in a group facility. But he ran away after 3 days. He somehow ended up here. Lena sat in silence. She had believed for so long that Noah was taken by a stranger, but this was something different. He had been kept hidden for years. Taught not to ask questions, told lies about his past. Eli told her once, in a quiet moment, that Mama Ruth used to say something over and over. Your real mother gave you away, left you at a fair, you were not wanted. That lie had followed him for years, and it had changed him. Lena felt the weight of it, but she also felt something else. A rising need to know who had taken him and why. She contacted the Boise Police Department, explained everything. The photo, the memories, the elephant, the DNA test that was now in progress. She was passed from one person to another, until finally, She was connected to Detective Sandra Vega. Sandra listened carefully. Then she said something Lena did not expect. There is someone else I think should hear this. His name is Mark Delaney. He was one of the original officers assigned to your sons. Casey is retired now, but he still keeps the file in his home office. Later that week, the three of them met. Mark Delaney brought a dusty box of notes, photos, and police reports from 2 decades ago. He laid it all out on a long table. There was one name that stood out in the old file. Leonard Grant. Known around the fairgrounds as Uncle Len, he ran a food booth near the lemonade stand. He had been questioned in 2005, but was cleared. Said he was working during the time Noah disappeared. But something about him had bothered Delaney. He remembered asking the fair manager if Leonard had any prior record. The manager said no. Background was clean. But Delaney never saw the paperwork, and Leonard disappeared after the fair season ended. Detective Vega pulled new records, dug deeper, and that was when they found it. In 1991, Leonard Grant had been arrested in Montana. The charge: child endangerment. The case was dropped due to lack of evidence, but it was on record. Why did no one follow up on this in 2005? Because someone had buried it. Lena sat back in her chair, her fingers clenched, her heart raced. It was starting to make sense now. Leonard had been there. Near the lemonade stand, near Noah, and then gone. If he took Noah, where did Mama Ruth come in? Detective Vega began to trace connections. Travel routes, fair staff, motels. The deeper they dug, the more the story began to unravel. And just when Lena thought she had heard everything, Pastor Harmon called her. There is something you should see. He led her to a small storage room near Eli's old sleeping area. There, behind a loose board in the wall, was a letter, folded, yellowed with age. It read, "If anyone finds this, my name is Noah Whitmore. I do not know where I am. The lady says I cannot talk about before, but I remember my mom's voice. I remember the carousel. I want to go home." The date written at the bottom was 2014. He had been 14 years old. When he wrote it, Lena pressed the paper to her chest and sobbed. He remembered. Even then, he remembered. What if someone else had known the truth all along, and chose to stay silent? Lena held the letter with both hands, fingers shaking. The paper was old, creased, faded, but the words were clear. If anyone finds this, my name is Noah Whitmore. That name, her son's real name. Written by a scared boy, trapped in a life he did not choose. He had not forgotten her, not fully. Even after all the lies, even after all the years, he still remembered her voice, the carousel, the feeling of being taken from home. She brought the letter to Detective Vega, who read it twice, then passed it to Mark Delaney. Both detectives sat in silence for a long time. The weight of what this meant was impossible to ignore. He tried to get help, Lena said, and no one found it. That letter had been tucked behind a wall for over 9 years. A silent message from a child who had no other way to speak. It changed everything. It was not just a missing person case anymore. It was proof of survival, proof that someone had kept him hidden. Someone who had lied. Someone who had built a prison out of silence and control. The investigation reopened fully. Cold files were pulled, witnesses re-interviewed, new names surfaced, and then another truth came crashing forward. It arrived in a beige envelope. Number, return address. It had been mailed directly to Lena. Inside, folded neatly, were 2 letters and a single Polaroid photo. Lena recognized the handwriting on the envelope instantly. It was from Ryan, her ex-husband, the man who had walked away from their marriage 15 years ago, the man she had not heard from in over a decade. She opened the letter slowly. Emily, if you are reading this, it means I finally found the courage to tell the truth. I should have told you years ago. I got a letter, a few months after Noah disappeared. No name, no explanation, just a photo, a blurry image of a boy standing in front of a trailer. He looked like Noah. Not exactly, but close. I did not show you. I thought it was a prank. I thought it would only break you more. Lena stopped reading for a moment. Her hands began to tremble. The second letter came a few weeks later. It said, "He is alive. Forget the fair. You were warned." I took it to the police. They said there was nothing they could do. No fingerprints, no location, nothing to act on. I begged them not to tell you. I thought I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was afraid. I kept them all these years. I am sending them to you now. I am sorry. The Polaroid showed a small boy standing in front of a beige trailer. One blue eye, one honey brown. He was wearing a Spider-Man shirt. The image was blurry, but it was him. Behind the boy, just out of focus, stood a shadowy figure. A man, unclear, moving, but definitely watching. Detective Vega added the letters and photo to the case file. The paper was old, but still usable. The lab tested the envelope, and they found something, a partial DNA match. Saliva on the seal, it matched a paper scrap found in an old vendor contract. The signature on that contract, L. Grant. Leonard Grant. The man who had once been called Uncle Len at the fair. That was the link, the thread that tied the past to the present. Leonard Grant had written those letters. He had been watching the Whitmore family after the abduction. Not only that, he had warned Ryan to stay silent. This was not just a random kidnapping. It had been planned, and now it looked like someone else had helped him do it. Detective Vega received an anonymous voicemail on her personal phone. A man's voice, shaky, nervous. "You are looking for Leonard Grant. I knew him. I knew what he did. I told someone years ago. They told me to stay quiet, that it was not my business." Look into Glenn Rowley. He knew, he always knew. Glenn Rowley. He had been the fairgrounds manager in 2005. Lena remembered him. He was there the day Noah disappeared. Calm, collected, quick to dismiss everything. Detective Vega and Delaney drove to his home just outside Nampa. It was quiet, overgrown. Wind chime clinked softly on the porch as they knocked. Glenn opened the door slowly. He looked older, tired, but sharp. "I thought you were retired," he said, eyeing Delaney. "And I thought you were honest." Delaney replied. They sat inside. The house smelled like dust and old coffee. Glenn listened as Vega mentioned Leonard Grant, and the letters, and the child who had come back after 20 years. He stayed quiet. Then finally, he spoke. "I knew he had a record, but the board told me to let it go. They said he brought in money, that it was politics. I did not know a child would be taken." "You knew he was dangerous," Vega said. "I knew he was trouble, but I was afraid. If I reported it, we would lose everything. We would lose the fair." "You covered it up," Delaney said. Glenn looked down. "Yes, I did. He was charged with obstruction. It would not bring Noah's lost years back, but it was something. It was the first crack in a wall that had stood for far too long. Later that same week, Lena received another call. It was from her sister, Carla. She had found something while cleaning their father's old cabin outside McCall. A box, labeled Emily Personal. Inside were toys, old notebooks, and one strange card taped to the lid. An appointment reminder. Boise Family Services, June 2004. Name, Ruth Hartley. Lena's voice caught in her throat. "Carla, are you saying Mama? Ruth once lived under Dad's roof." Carla was silent for a moment. "Do you remember that basement apartment we used to rent out?" Lena did remember. And now, the truth felt like a punch to the stomach. The woman who had taken her son had lived 5 blocks from their home. She had seen them. She had studied them. This was not a random act. It was planned. If Mama Ruth had once lived so close, what else had she seen that Lena never noticed? Lena sat alone in her car outside the cabin, the one her father used to take them to every summer. The place filled with old laughter, fishing poles, and now a memory that changed everything. Mama Ruth had lived here, under their roof, 5 blocks from their home in Boise. A woman who watched her family, who saw Noah playing in the front yard, who maybe stood at the corner of the street, unnoticed, planning, waiting. This was never random, it was personal. Lena had spent years blaming chance, blaming a stranger in the crowd, but now she knew. Mama Ruth had chosen Noah, and Leonard Grant had helped her take him. Detective Vega launched a background check. The results confirmed it. Ruth Hartley had rented the basement unit from Lena's father in 2003 and 2004. She had listed herself as a caretaker, domestic work. No one ran a background check. No one thought to ask questions. Back then she seemed harmless, just a quiet woman looking for a small space to live. But she had been watching them. Lena's heart ached with a new kind of pain. All this time she believed she had missed something in a moment, a napkin, a turn of her head, but the truth was darker. Noah had been taken by someone who had been close all along. She told Eli everything, sat him down, gently, and shared what they had found. About Ruth, about Leonard, about the old trailer, and the letters. Eli listened carefully, quietly. Then he said something that made Lena's breath catch. "She used to tell me that I was chosen, that my real mother gave me away, that I was meant for something better." Lena reached out and held his hand. "You were not given away. You were taken, and I never stopped looking." "I know now," he said, "but for a long time I believed her. I believed no one wanted me. I hated you for not coming. And now I do not even know who I am. You are Eli, and you are Noah. Both of those things can be true. I just want you safe. I just want you home." Eli nodded slowly. There were tears in his eyes. But this time, he did not look away. A few days later, the DNA results arrived. It was official. Eli was Noah. Whitmore. The boy who vanished in 2005. The boy with one blue eye and one honey brown, found after 20 years. The news spread quickly. The local press called it a miracle, a mystery solved, a reunion few ever get to see. But not everything was simple. Eli did not move back into his old room. He chose the guest room instead, a new space, a fresh beginning. The hallway wall in Lena's house stayed the same. Not as a map anymore, but as a record, a story of love that never stopped. Together, they began therapy. Slowly, they learned how to sit in the same room without the weight of everything falling on them. Lena showed him home videos. He watched one of himself on a tricycle and laughed. Said he remembered the sound of the bell. That small memory lit something in both of them. They started making pancakes together every Sunday. The kitchen smelled like it used to, butter syrup, warmth. And one night, Eli asked a question. Did I have a favorite food? Lena smiled. You called it gold noodles. It was just macaroni with too much cheese. He laughed. I still love that. Another night. He looked at her with unsure eyes. Will it hurt you if I never fully become Noah again? Lena held his hand. No, because you are here, and that is enough. He looked down, then back up. Thanks, Mom. That was the first time he had said it, and Lena did not cry right away. But later, when the house was quiet, she held Nino the elephant close to her chest and let herself feel it all. Meanwhile, the investigation kept moving. The fair board members who had ignored complaints in 2005 were questioned. Glenn Rowley accepted a plea deal. He admitted to covering up Leonard Grant's past. He said it was about business, about politics, but Lena knew it was about fear and silence. The kind that lets evil slip through cracks. Leonard Grant had vanished. No trace, no address, no bank activity. Some believed he was dead, others believed he was hiding, just like he had helped hide Noah. Then came the phone call from Detective Vega. We found something. A man in Pocatello had come forward. He had once worked with Ruth Hartley in 2010, said she talked about helping children, finding them better lives. He thought she meant adoption, but now, knowing what she did, he sent a photo. It showed Ruth standing beside another boy, not Noah, a different boy. But with the same eyes. Could Ruth Hartley have taken someone else after no one kept him hidden too? The photo was not a mistake. That boy standing beside Ruth Hartley in the dusty backyard of a halfway house had the same rare eyes, one blue, one honey, not exactly like Noah's, but close enough to know she had done it again. Ruth had taken another child. His name was never listed. No records, no birth certificate. The man who shared the photo said he only saw them once. Ruth called the boy her nephew, said he was delicate, sickly, kept him close. Then one day, they were gone. Detective Vega and her team launched a national search. They traced Ruth's old rental addresses. They searched missing children databases. They even looked for unregistered homeschool records, aliases, anything. But the second boy was like a ghost, a shadow left behind in Ruth's path, one who might still be out there, or might not. When Lena showed the photo to Eli, he stared for a long time. He looks like me, he whispered. Lena nodded because she chose him. The same way she chose you. Eli's hands trembled. He turned the photo over. No writing, no date. She wanted a family, he said, but not in a normal way. She wanted to build one out of children the world forgot. You were never forgotten, Lena said. Never. He nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed on that photo for the rest of the night. The weeks that followed were quiet and healing. The investigation continued, but Lena and Eli focused on something else. Something they had never had the chance to build before. A real life. Eli chose not to change his name back to Noah. He explained it simply. Noah was the beginning. Eli was the survivor. Now, I am both. So he became Eli Noah Whitmore. He enrolled in online college courses, psychology, social work. He wanted to help other kids, like him, children who had been lost in systems. In silence, in someone else's story. And every Sunday, without fail, he and Lena made pancakes. Gold noodles came back to. One evening, as the sun set behind the neighborhood trees, Eli asked Lena if they could go somewhere. Where? She asked. You will see. They drove 4 hours. Across the same highways they had taken years ago, past familiar exits, past quiet hills. Until they reached the Boise Fairgrounds. It had changed, new paint, new rides, but some things remained the same. The carousel still stood at the center. The same music, the same rhythm. They walked through the gates, not as mother and missing child, but as something stronger. Survivors. Eli held a cup of lemonade in his hand, took a sip, winced. Still too sour, he said with a smile. You always said that. Lena laughed. He looked around, then pointed. That is where it happened. Near the lemonade stand. You remember, not all of it, but enough. He paused. He said he lost his dog, asked me to help him find it. Said it would only take a second. Then something sharp touched my neck, and it all went dark. Lena said nothing. She just stood beside him, her eyes full, her hand steady. They walked together toward the carousel. Eli chose the zebra again, the same one he had ridden 20 years. Earlier, as the music played, Lena stood near the railing, her heart in her throat. This was where she last saw him. This was where she had screamed his name into a crowd that never looked back. And now, he was here again, alive, whole hers. When the ride ended, Eli stepped down slowly, walked to her, reached for her hand. "You came back to me," she whispered. He looked at her and said, "I never stopped trying." That night, back home, Lena lit a candle, sat at her desk, and wrote one final letter. "Dear Noah, I used to write to you every day. I told myself maybe, somehow, you would hear me. I told myself the words might carry through time and space like a quiet signal in the dark. For 20 years, I missed birthdays, school photos, bedtime songs, but I never missed loving you. That part never stopped. You were 5 when you disappeared, 25 when you came home, but I never stopped being your mom, and I am so proud of the man you became. Wherever life takes you, never forget, you are not what happened to you. You are not broken. You are loved. Always. Love." Mom. The letter was folded and placed inside a small wooden box, alongside a worn elephant with one button eye, a faded flyer from a Spokane church, and the photo from the carousel. Some stories do not end in a courtroom. Some stories do not end with handcuffs. Some stories end with two people finally sitting across from each other and simply choosing to begin again. If you are still watching this story, it means it touched you. It means you cared. And that means this story deserves your like and your subscribe. Please help us reach 5,000 likes. That is a promise I made to my mother. It is totally free. Just one click. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this story?